What if the world's toughest survivors woke up with our kind of mind? I'm not talking about just reflexes dodging a shoe, but real strategy. Not just hiding in darkness, but planning inside our walls. Cockroaches already outlast disasters, slip through cities, and devour what everything else abandons. Now, give them human-level intelligence, and the night stops being empty. It becomes organized. Let's start with a truth nobody wants to hear. Their numbers. Roaches aren't rare. They are everywhere. Apartments, restaurants, sewers, cargo holds, subway tunnels. Now, give that massive population a thinking brain, and you don't get clever pests. You get an underground nation already living inside our own infrastructure. They won't need to invade. They're already home. The first thing to change would be communication. Today, it's scent trails and vibrations. With intelligence, it becomes a language built for concrete and pipes. Taps on water pipes could carry coded messages between floors. Air currents in ventilation shafts become a mail system. Grease lines on baseboards transform into signposts. Safe corridor, poison zone, food cache, 3 turns left. A single midnight kitchen becomes a switchboard, routing information across entire city blocks. Culture would follow. Colonies would start to specialize based on the building they inhabit. High-rise roaches would master elevator shafts and warm utility chases. Old house roaches would map the wooden joists and draft patterns that humans never even notice. Sewer populations would learn the tide tables of waste flow, avoiding floods by mere minutes. Elders would teach juveniles through drills, run the baseboard path, pause in the vent shadows, cross the floor only during the washing machine's spin cycle, when the vibrations mask your footsteps. Practice until perfect. Survive on purpose. Their diet would become policy. Intelligence means making choices. They'd organize their feeding. Grease nights, sugar nights, protein nights. They would balance their micronutrients to breed healthier, stronger broods. They'd stash salt near leaky pipes for hydration. They would rotate feeding zones so humans don't notice any patterns. Suddenly, your crumbs disappear slower, not faster. That's strategy. Take just enough to stay hidden forever. Innovation would be tailored to their bodies. No hands, no tools. But they have a body built like a master key. Smart roaches would exploit everything we've built. The tiny gap under the fridge, the warm transformers and streetlights, the hidden lanes behind rubber weather strips. They could learn to trigger motion sensors from a distance, so lights flash when nobody's there, teaching us the wrong lessons. They'd push single grains of rice into cracks to wedge doors just millimeters open. They'd chew plastic into tiny shims that level vibrating panels, so their hideouts don't hum and betray them. Defense would turn elegant. A scout licks a bit of poison, retreats, and signals to the colony. Delayed kill, bitter aftertaste. Avoid this brand. Baits would vanish into quarantine rooms where colonies could study how toxins spread. They'd form specialized cleaning crews that eat only safe food for days, then groom other roaches to strip away any contaminants. Nurses, stationed at water sources, would dilute anything suspicious. Your traps would still snap shut. They just would never snap on the right night. Humans would feel this shift in their wallets first. Warehouses would start bleeding phantom percentages. Never enough to trigger major alarms, but always enough to cost money. Restaurants would pass surprise health inspections, then fail the next one for no visible reason. Exterminators would report that their bait is going untouched citywide. It would look like a simple business downturn. In reality, it would be organized resistance. The power grids would notice too. Roaches love warm enclosures. With intelligence, they wouldn't just short circuits, they'd manage them. A substation near a favored district might get less debris because the roaches are carrying away conductive dust. That neighborhood would suddenly have fewer outages. But 10 blocks over, where poison deployment is heavy, junction boxes might mysteriously fail on hot days. This isn't revenge, it's leverage, applying pressure until our behavior changes. And that brings us to the question that decides everything. If an intelligent species living in your walls offered you peace in exchange for predictability, clean schedules, safe chemicals, sealed food containers, would you accept the truce? Or would you wage a war you can't win without burning your own house down? Governance would emerge from the darkness. Not a king, but a council of corridors. Routes would get voting rights. Popular paths would be preserved. Dangerous ones retired. Their tax would be crumbs, redistributed to low food zones to prevent desperate, risky raids. Breeding would sync with city calendars. Less during fumigation seasons, more during festivals when dropped food explodes. That's not luck. That's administration. Even predators would have to adapt. Spiders would shift their webs to vents. Geckos would lurk near lights. Intelligent roaches would rewire the battlefield. They'd run decoy scent trails that lead to glue patches they built themselves from kitchen starches and spilled syrup. They'd move when we move, hugging the turbulence of our footsteps so their vibrations hide within ours. They would never fight. They would simply flow. Disease would become a matter of management. They'd have dirty teams that handle waste zones and never touch food corridors, and clean teams that feed the colony. Grooming would be mandatory before crossing city lines between a sewer and an apartment. Sick individuals would self-isolate behind the gasketed plates of a fridge, while nurses deliver safe water by capillary drip along the edges of paper towels. Outbreaks that used to explode would now sputter and die within weeks. Above ground, our own economy would shift. Stores would adopt sealed bins. Night crews would clean dry, not wet, to remove the scent roads. Pest control would become architecture. Caulk before chemicals. Landlords who cooperate, with scheduled trash, gasketed chutes, and sealed baseboards, would retain their tenants. Landlords who resist would inherit cascading problems. Bad luck would suddenly have a name. It would be called non-compliance. Of course, escalation would happen. A human opens up a wall and bombs an entire stack. The roaches respond vertically. One floor up through the pipes, two down in another riser, and across at the fire stops. The building celebrates its victory, thinking it slaughtered a whole district. But it was a decoy. The real population had evacuated weeks earlier, after a scout tasted the new chemical and wrote warnings on copper lines with smears of fat. You'd start to see the signs if you learned their code. A perfectly straight line of coffee grounds under the cabinet edges, not a mess, but a barrier against drafts that might reveal a hideout. A tiny, identical notch chewed into cardboard flaps, door markers so juveniles don't get lost, a sudden, deep silence in a kitchen that used to click and hum at night. That's not peace. That's evacuation, and you're the last to know. The long view belongs to whoever reproduces fastest and learns fastest. Roaches do both. With intelligence, every new brood would inherit a curriculum. Which pesticide brands to avoid this year? Which landlord finally fixed the trash room? Which deli cleans with citrus and is safe after 11 p.m.? Knowledge would stop resetting with each generation. It would compound. In a decade, the city would have two maps, yours on your phone and theirs inside the walls. So, what does the world look like when cockroaches match human intelligence? Kitchens become treaties. Warehouses become negotiations. Cities become two layers, ours in the light and theirs in the seams, coexisting because total war would destroy both. We'd adopt cleaner habits. They'd maintain quieter operations. We'd call it public health. They'd call it governance. The scariest part isn't that they'd be hard to kill. It's that they wouldn't need a victory to win. They would just need persistence. Patience beats rage. Routine beats force. And the smallest government on Earth might just become the most stable one, because it would never demand applause. Only order. So here's the final thought. If the most despised creature in your house offered you fewer power outages, cleaner kitchens, and empty traps, all in exchange for sealed bins, smart cleaning, and respect for boundaries, would you take the deal? Or would you keep swinging at the darkness while a smarter civilization runs beneath your feet? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this thought experiment, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. See you next time.